And it has been another 3 months since I last recorded. Is anyone surprised? I'm not. Yeah. I even had a system for getting these videos made faster, but it didn't work, evidently. But, yeah, now we're returning to Link getting launched out of the castle in the sky and not falling gracefully on his back into someone's arms. Instead, he just kinda falls and screams. What a wuss. He falls 1,000 feet and screams. I don't know. In the meantime, we are going to talk to a chicken. And the chicken will summon a chicken dragon. I guess I could explain this game before we begin, even though there are other stuff that there's other stuff that I want to talk about, because in the 3 months or so since my last recording, I've done a whole bunch of stuff that in this Let's Play I said that I thought I would never do. So that's worth mentioning, I guess. But here's the chicken dragon. Totally a chicken dragon. Or maybe not even a dragon, it's more like just a chicken bird, except chickens are birds. Never mind. Maybe it's like a chicken bat. But, in this minigame, you collect the strawberries, and that's it. That's how you're guaranteed victory. But you might as well collect the other fruit. I guess they're fruit. They're like lumpy pumpkins. The lumpy pumpkin from Skyward Sword. I know that that's not the origin of the phrase, but that's what I associate it with. Yeah, so we got things that look like pumpkins, things that look like watermelons, and things that look like strawberries, except I don't think any of them are actually those things, except maybe the watermelons. Because the strawberries look like fake things that you would hang on a Christmas tree or something. I don't know if that would technically qualify as an ornament. Maybe an ornament, I don't know. But the gist of it is that you get combos out of collecting the same thing a lot of times in a row, and so you always want to go for the highest scoring thing, and it'll get you the best combo, and that's the end. So as far as stuff that I wanted to talk about, I have no good segue into this, but let's see. Several of the things that I have mentioned in this playthrough that I thought that I would never do. One was play Shovel Knight, because I figured, you know, I'm not really a big fan of NES games or the NES console, so I figured if Shovel Knight is the best of the NES games, or it's like the best NES game to ever exist, then that's not really that much of an accomplishment in my opinion, and I figured, you know, it probably wouldn't be my thing. But I've played that now. I've also played Breath of the Wild, which, you know, I had that long spiel about that. I've seen Rogue One, and I've seen Moana. And Rogue One I mentioned, you know, probably not going to see it because it was a spin-off of the main series, and I didn't care about that as much. Oh yes, gotta point this out. What? No way. 40,000 points? You got more than 10,000 points. Math. Good job. Just love the very obvious statement. And then Moana, I think I mentioned, like, I probably wouldn't see that just because the trailers made it look like there was no plot, basically. But I guess I'll go into those in the order that I mentioned them. I guess I'll also probably point out my feelings on Mario Kart 8, because that's another game that I've played, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe specifically. Let's see. Yeah, Shovel Knight. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I need to get a tissue because my nose is a scruffy-looking nerf herder. Professionalism. I could edit this out. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I probably won't. Yeah, I would say, really my thoughts on Shovel Knight and Breath of the Wild were both pretty accurate. Like, as far as my predictions for how I would react to them, because Shovel Knight definitely does feel like a really solid NES game, but it doesn't have elements to it that I really like, and it's not even necessarily that there's anything wrong with it, because I would imagine that for people who are fond of NES games, they will play it and think it's the greatest thing ever. But for me, it was just, I don't know, it has smart level design, it has a reasonable amount of personality, it's, I don't know, I mean, for what it is, it's well designed. I just don't really care for what it is that much. I found it kind of irritating control-wise in some ways. Like, it felt a little wrong to me that it's a very Mega Man-esque game, but it doesn't have the stiff movement that Mega Man does. You kind of get a little bit of a start. You have to accelerate a little bit before you move, and that's kind of weird to me. There's the bounce back whenever you hit an enemy, and there are a lot of enemies on ledges, and that causes you to fall off, and that kind of annoys me. There's the Super Mario Bros. 3 thing where you're on the overworld, and then there's sometimes something on the overworld, like an enemy that if you run into it, then you have to go into a little mini level to fight the enemy. And that's something I never liked in Super Mario Bros. 3, but I think it's a lot worse in Shovel Knight, because instead of just being an enemy, it's like a full-fledged boss fight or a really long level, and you can't really make them go away without either beating them or just kind of waiting it out. And yeah, I don't really like the levels enough to want more of them. I also don't like the bosses at all, really, because they're small targets that bounce around all over the place, and you have a short-ranged attack. Well, mainly a short-range attack, and then you have a limited supply of long range, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna say, like, Mega Man is the greatest thing ever because of stuff like Quick Man Stage, where you have to be overly precise, but I think overall, something like Mega Man 10 I prefer over Shovel Knight. That's probably about all I wanted to say about that. I do like the music. The music is definitely good, although I don't really find it as memorable as I think other people do. Main song that really sticks out to me is the boss fight that goes... That's a good one. Very catchy. And then I guess, I don't want to talk too long about Breath of the Wild, because I've already talked about it enough. But I did play that for a few hours, and as far as I can understand, a lot of people say that the beginning of the game is kind of the weakest point, because it's just a long tutorial section where you have to go around and go to these shrines and then do stuff for this old man, and then eventually you get all of your items, and like after all of that is done, then you're free to do whatever you want. But honestly, out of what I played, which was not far beyond the tutorial, I thought the tutorial was kind of the best part, because there actually was pretty distinct guidance as to where to go. And I can't say that I want to play the game ever again. It's another situation where I really don't think that it's necessarily a bad game, because for its intended audience, it seems like the best that it could possibly be. But for me personally, it really doesn't do it for me. It just seems like a very, very big, very, very big empty game that it's like, I don't know, to me the overworld is like the Shadow of the Colossus overworld, which is meant to be empty, except make that already empty overworld way bigger, and that's kind of what Breath of the Wild is, but with some enemies sprinkled here and there. And then the shrines, like, I don't think the shrines are really worth it, considering they take like 3 minutes to beat, and it takes 20 minutes to get to them. And that's irritating. The weapon durability system, that was less annoying than I thought it would be, but still kind of annoying. What I didn't expect to be annoying was the control scheme, because there are so many buttons that do so many different things and I really don't think there need to be as many buttons as there are, and I don't think that the buttons are very intuitive. Like, sure, it's nice for Link to have a jump now, and it's nice for there to be different buttons for different kinds of menus for quick access to them, I guess, but it just felt, like, really overwhelming to me, and I didn't like it one bit. I just kept pressing the wrong button constantly, and maybe I would get more used to it if I played a lot more, but I also didn't completely get used to the controls in Yooka-Laylee, and I played that for 24 hours. Yeah, I mean, I think that the controls in Yooka-Laylee are more intuitive than Breath of the Wild. Oh yeah, here is the ice cavern that I was pretty excited at one point to record blind, and I never actually ended up getting a recording of my audio for this, but I did enjoy solving these puzzles again. There's something about ice puzzles and just, I don't know, sliding puzzles like this in general, as long as they're simple, that I enjoy. Like, there's a game on Newgrounds called Roadblocks, which is really old, but it's a game that I enjoy, and it's just a game where you're a sphere, and whatever direction you go is the direction that you continue until you hit something. And that's about it. That's the whole game. And has, I don't know, 20 levels or so. And I really liked it. And then, if you've ever played Orbox A, B, or C, then that's the same thing, except more complicated, and that's why I don't like it as much. And that's also why I don't like Roadblocks 2 as much, which came out way, way longer later. That was a poor sentence. But it came way afterwards, and yeah, I think puzzles like this, when they introduce too many mechanics that make them more complex, I don't like them as much, because I think it's a little bit too overwhelming. But back on the subject of just stuff that I discovered, there's, I guess Rogue One would be next. Rogue One, I enjoyed more than I thought I would, which is not something I can say about the whole movie, because the first, I would say, 2/3 of it were kind of boring. Well, maybe not boring, maybe that's not the right word. Like, it was intriguing enough, but it was pretty dull, I thought. There wasn't really much to keep me, like, invested in the characters. I didn't feel like really anything was going on that was important. But then in the last section of the movie, it turns into something really special. And that's just kind of fascinating, I guess. Like, it provides a lot of context for A New Hope, because it takes place right before A New Hope. And it's interesting to me because one of my brothers said that The Force Awakens is potentially better than any of the other Star Wars movies in terms of its general structure and all of that, which I would not agree with. I think, like, it does certainly turn into a great movie towards the end, but most of it, I think, is, yeah, like I said, pretty dull. And even towards the end, I feel like part of the reason that it makes for an interesting movie is that it, I don't want to say piggybacks off of the success of A New Hope, but I don't think it would work as well as a standalone story, if not for the fact that A New Hope exists. I don't know, but generally it's well done. I thought that the CG characters were not particularly distracting, like I thought that they would be, and that was one of the points that my brother said was, like, the worst thing in the movie. Like, there's CG at the very, very end in the last few seconds. I'm not going to really say much about it, but he said that the whole movie is good, and then it gets to that point, and then it kind of sucks. Like, it ends on a really sour note just because of those last few seconds and how awful they look, but I really didn't see a problem. They looked fine to me. So, maybe I am just not a connoisseur of realistic CG characters. But, yeah, I thought the movie was overall fine. I don't know if I would see it again, but I do think that potentially it could be a good first movie for people to watch if they've never seen Star Wars before, because it definitely has more of a modern pacing to it than something like A New Hope does. But it still is a good introduction to A New Hope, I guess. And then, let's see, Moana. Moana I saw much more recently, and I already went on a rant about the trailers, but the trailers really kind of suck for that movie. They offer no information besides just Moana exists. She is not that impressed with Maui. Maui is like a tough guy who is very arrogant, and that's about it. The rest just looks like a trailer for, or not even a trailer, it looks like an advertisement for a vacation to Hawaii. Like, the trailers said nothing. So I wasn't interested in seeing the movie for the longest time because I thought, well, it's just going to be a movie where everything that we see in the trailer is all that happens. I'm glad whenever a trailer doesn't show too much information. It's just those trailers didn't show enough information. You have to at least have a baseline of here's what the movie is about, in my opinion. But I saw it, and I think that the reviews were a lot better thing to go on than the trailers were in terms of the quality of the movie, because it was a really good movie. Definitely not quite what I expected. Certainly predictable in some places, but not in a bad way. It's kind of like, well, I know this is going to happen at some point. So, there it is. Yeah, it's more like that than, I already know what's going to happen. I just got this over with. And the movie still comes with its fair share of surprises, and it's a very clever, imaginative movie. Very bright and colorful, for sure. It's like the brightest, most colorful movie I've ever seen, probably. Well, maybe not most colorful, like, in terms of the variety of color, but it's certainly the most vibrant movie I've ever seen. They did not skip on that at all. So, I would recommend giving it a watch. I would describe it as, like, it's kind of like Tangled or Frozen in terms of its structure, but I think it's structured better than those movies, and it's also way less obnoxious. Because Frozen gets pretty obnoxious. And it has scenes that I don't think need to exist at all, but Moana seems pretty deliberate for the most part. And then if I want to talk about Mario Kart 8, yeah, this is just my rambling about everything ever video. Mario Kart 8. Whenever I was at my brother's place, and I have two brothers. I'm kind of using the word brother interchangeably between the two because I don't like being too specific, I guess, for some reason. But, yeah, there was a point when I went to my brother's place, and I had a whole lot of time to myself, and there was nothing to do in the house except for play Wii U, or not Wii U, play the Switch. Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe are the only two games that he owns. I'd already played a lot of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and I thought, do I want to play more Breath of the Wild or not? And what I ended up doing was not playing it again, because I didn't really care enough. But Mario Kart 8, yeah, every time I have an opportunity to play either of those games, I play Mario Kart 8. Which I don't think is as good as Double Dash. Double Dash is still my favorite, but I don't know, it's a fun game. It took me a long time to really find a method for it that made me really enjoy it, because I feel like it's a very random game. It feels more random for the most part than even Mario Party does, because Mario Party is a more slow, methodical game, and even though there is a lot of luck to it, you can generally, like, do well at the minigames and get first place in the end. And, I think it balances out pretty well. You have to be really unlucky in order to lose. And Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it seems like no matter how well you do, you could get 7th place, because it just throws things at you in ways that you can't predict. There's lots of blue shells and stuff, but even the blue shells, like, the blue shells aren't that big of a problem, honestly. It doesn't seem like they slow you down any more than regular shells do. In fact, maybe even a little bit less than regular shells do, which was never the case in other Mario Kart games as far as I know, but yeah, the blue shells don't seem that bad, to be honest. It's just all the other items slow you down so much whenever you get hit by shells and stuff. And then there's so many things going on at once. I don't know, but eventually I discovered, as my torso gets burned to death, just the torso dies, but not the rest of Link. I eventually discovered that in the same way that Pipsy in Diddy Kong Racing seems to be the fastest racer, but is actually the slowest and just has the fastest acceleration, I found that making the very slowest cart in the game out of the resources, but having it have the fastest acceleration, is like almost guaranteed victory every time. It's kind of awesome. At least getting the top 3 every time. So that's how I learned to stop caring and enjoy the bomb. That's not how the title goes, but yeah, I just made the slowest racer with Baby Mario and like a little ladybug car and whatever else. And then I pretty much just plowed through all of the 200cc cups. I got gold on all of them. And I was disappointed to discover that the only thing that you get from doing that is just Silver Mario or Metal Mario turned into Gold Mario instead. Like, now that's an extra option. Oh look, it's a model just retextured gold. Wonderful. Best prize. I mean, I know that it is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and Mario Kart 8 wouldn't have had that problem because Mario Kart 8, just the regular version, causes, or it forces you to unlock all the characters over time, whereas Mario Kart 8 Deluxe starts you with all the characters, so it's like more open for anyone who wants to play and pick it up. But still, it seems like they could have come up with something a little bit better than that. If you're going to have a revamped version of a game, then I don't know, I feel like you should at least have more than just some more battle modes and all the characters unlocked at once and like 200cc right off the bat. Well, those are all good changes, but Gold Mario. Pink Gold Peach. Why is that a thing that exists? Freaking Pink Gold Peach. Well, that's basically all I wanted to ramble about. This isn't a great stopping place in the video for me to just start a new segment because Wolf Link is just kind of wandering around in the middle of nowhere right now. So I could attempt to come up with other stuff to talk about, I guess, before, like, a cut. Let's see, I had my toenail removed, again. It's been about 11 months since I had it last removed. And the first time that I had it removed was because of, like, really bad fungus that caused my toenail to grow, like, inwards, like, downwards, instead of the way that a toenail should normally grow. And, it looked scrunched up like a scrunchie, and it was kind of inconvenient. I was hoping that it wouldn't grow at all. Like, I was hoping after the first time my toenail got removed, it would be, you know, just... It would just never grow back again, because I think it's kind of nice to have one less toenail, because that means I don't have to cut it. That's great. Less work. Even if it protects my toe, I feel like the trade-off of not having to cut my toenail would be just all worth it. But yeah, got it removed again. No telling whether it will grow back this time or it will start growing back more normally. But, yeah. Once again, I got stuck with 6 needles in my toe to have anesthetics do their work. And now there's kind of a red crater where my toenail used to be, and it has some black stuff in it too for some reason. I'm not really sure what that is. The stuff that they used to cover up my toe to, like, disinfect it looked like soy sauce. So I said that, and then the doctor doing the operation said, well, he didn't say anything in particular, he just referred to it as soy sauce later in the day, which I thought was amusing. So, there's that. Oh, is my long past self going for a heart container? I think he is. Way to go, past self. Good on ya, mate. I'm trying to think if there are any other movies that I've seen that I just hadn't talked about before. Let's see. My Life as a Zucchini. Or My Life as a Courgette, I guess, would be what it's called in France. That is a 66-minute movie that is a stop motion about a kid who gets put in some kind of adoption home. I don't know if it's exactly an orphanage, but it's sort of an orphanage. And, that movie was weird and kind of dark, but also pretty interesting. It had really high marks, good reviews, so I agree with them. I think that it's a good movie. Not quite what I expected, but worth a watch. It was just kind of unusual because it's like a movie about these little kids, and it seems very age-appropriate with all the stop motion and everything, and it's very stylized. But at the same time, it has stuff like, there's a part where he's talking about, well, no, there's parts in the movie where the kids are talking about, like, sex, and that kind of was jarring for a moment. And there's a part where the main character kid, like, drew a picture of a naked person with all the body parts, and it was just, well, I mean, it's not exactly unrealistic to say that kids could do these things. It's just kind of weird seeing it in a movie. But it's also respectable to see that in a movie, I guess.